Okay, I think we can start, and that I think this is going to be registered also, so maybe someone can attend later. If you are attending, let me know about if you have questions or anything. You can write into the chat at any point. I am Costanza Caniglia. I am the Director of Communications at data.org, which is a platform for partnerships to build the field of data science for social impact. So we were going to talk about misinformation today, but I want to introduce myself first a little bit, talk a little bit about data.org, and then talk about misinformation. So this will be a very basic setup of what the field of misinformation is, what are the most common things that we can see online, what are some of the main strategies and some of the main ways to respond. Obviously, there are different actors and different kind of strategies, and also different responses from different actors, right? So it's different if you are a user, if you are a part of the media, if you are an organization that has been subjected to misinformation or disinformation campaigns. And so we'll go a little bit into this. We only have an hour, so it's not going to be so long. I mean, we can't go so much into detail, but we'll try to give a little bit of an overview, and then maybe leave some tools that you can use on your own. First thing first, I wanted to say I am really excited to be here at the Africa Digital Skill Conference. I want to thank Florence and the Web Ghana and the Africa Digital Skill Conference for inviting me. It's the first time for me to speak in this region, so I am really excited and very happy to be here. Again, I'd be really happy to engage with you. So I will leave a couple of minutes at the end for questions. I will try to leave around 15 minutes at the end for questions or for discussion. But if you have any other questions before that, please feel free, just drop it into the chat, and I will try to answer in real time. Some of them I will keep for the end. Okay, so with this said, I'm Costanza Caniglia. As I said, I work for data.org, which is a platform for partnerships to build the field of data science for social impact. And I'll explain a little bit more what this means in a minute. But to give a little bit of background about me, I am originally from Italy, but I've been living in the United States, mostly in New York, for the past 8-9 years. My background is in journalism and international relations. I worked at the UN for a long time, and especially on the Security Council in matters of public information. Besides my work at data.org, I'm also a researcher on misinformation at Harvard, where I co-founded the Harvard Kennedy School Misinformation Review, which is a journal dedicated to misinformation, especially, which has been funded at the beginning of this year. So now I will start sharing my slides. And let me see if this is going to work. Share. Okay, this should work. I don't know why. From the attendee view, I still see you seeing me and not the slides. Oh, okay, good. It's only a couple of minutes behind, or a few seconds behind. Okay, so understanding misinformation on social media, how to spot it, what to do. As I said, we are going to try and understand what is exactly misinformation? Is it only on social media? Is it something new? Is it something that has always existed? And more importantly, how do you realize that a piece of content is misinformation? And what do you do? So before doing that, a couple of minutes, I want to go into detail about data.org, because I think it's particularly important for the audience in this room, or in this conference, because the conference on digital skills, data.org is an organization that wants to work building the field of data science for social impact. What does that mean? It means we want to use the power of data science, so the same skills, the same tools that are used for private organizations, marketing, this kind of things, for social impact. So we want to put together the power of data to tackle some of society's greatest challenges and solve some of society's greatest challenges. We have done a few projects. We've supported different organizations already creating an impact in the lives of many, many people. I don't want to give a number, but many, many people. And we know that this is a very ambitious goal, but we think that we can do it because we have a model that is all about bringing organizations together and bringing people together. So we want to create really a platform where people and organizations can talk to each other and help each other and support each other and learn from each other. So we organize our work into 3 buckets. And the first bucket is to show what great looks like. So we like to highlight people and organizations that have effectively done that, used data science for social impact, and tell their stories and say, okay, so this is what it means for us. Another way to do this is we like to strengthen the capacity of people and organizations. Sometimes we have a lot of situations in which, for example, organizations want to use data science, but don't have the data science capability and skills. And so they're going to need data scientists, they're going to need people who are specialized in that. And very often it's difficult for an organization even to think about doing that, because sometimes they don't know what kind of skills they need, what kind of process it's needed. And so this is a way to strengthen the capacity of organizations. On the other side, we can have data scientists who have the skills, but maybe never thought or never worked in putting those skills in service of social impact. And so this is another way to bring these people together. And then finally, another area that we focus on is to transform the commons, which means to advance the public good. We say advance the public goods to transform the ecosystem. What does that mean? We need to work on a systematic level. So creating frameworks, creating policies that support this effort of using data science for social impact. And so with this said, I hope you're getting interested in data.org. If you have more questions about data.org, either ask me or tomorrow our COO, Catherine Townsend, is going to have a fantastic session on data science applications. She has tons of experience there, so absolutely follow that. Tomorrow is in the program. Now, let's get back, or let's finally get into misinformation and disinformation. So first of all, I want to start by defining what misinformation is, what disinformation is, and also what another area that is less talked about, malinformation, is. Malinformation is less important for us, less interesting in this presentation, but I still want to talk a little bit about it. So this division has been developed by a few scholars. In 2017, Claire Wardle, who is the founder of First Draft, and she's also at Harvard right now, and then in cooperation with the European Union, UNESCO. The European Union and UNESCO, they developed this. So what is, they talk about an information disorder rather than just misinformation, disinformation. So what is the issue here? So first of all, we live in an era of information disorder. Why? And what does that mean? It means that our information ecosystem has some emerging issues that were not there before, but are here now. And this is because while until a couple of years ago, we had the information, we had gatekeepers of information. So journalists, politicians, authority had kind of a grasp on information and what information was put out. Thanks to social media, we have a much wider number of people that can put information into the information ecosystem. And this is important. I would like you to think about the information ecosystem as a general ecosystem, right? So as a whole, and not as a certain piece of information is on Twitter, a certain piece of information is on Facebook or whatever. We need to think about all the information that we see in a general sense. So as a system. So in this context, obviously this is really great because we have a lot more voices that can be heard, and a lot more voices are shaping the conversation. So this is fantastic. But on the other side, it also creates some liabilities and weaknesses into the information ecosystem if there are actors who want to push false and harmful information. So to understand this problem, the community of scholars has divided the information, the bad information, let's say, into three buckets. So the first will be misinformation. Misinformation is false information that is shared, but without meaning harm. What does that mean? So for example, if you see, if there is a false tweet or a false post on Facebook and you share it thinking that it's true, you are doing misinformation. However, you think it's true, so you're not meaning harm, but you are still amplifying something that it's false. This is misinformation. Disinformation is when false information is knowingly shared to cause harm. This would be the most, the easiest to understand is, for example, when we talk about information operations from a foreign country that wants to push the outcome of an election. That is disinformation. It doesn't need to be an outside country, right? It can also be internal, or it can also be directed against organizations or people. It's false information that is shared for a reason, and usually this reason is to cause harm to the other part. And then finally, malinformation is when you have real information that is shared into a different context or a different environment to cause harm. For example, the classic example of this would be when you move private information into the public sphere. So for example, if someone is being harassed online and someone publishes their home address, that is malinformation, because it's a real information, but something that is shared to cause harm to that person. All right. Then once we have a general idea of what misinformation, disinformation is, we can start thinking, okay, so then what types of mis and disinformation are there, right? Because we can say, for example, that a false information is a joke, right? A joke is usually false. It's not real, but is also not really dangerous, because most people reading the joke will have a sense that it is a joke. This is partly true, partly not true, because you will see that in some cases it can still be dangerous when you remove the context and people don't realize that is actually satire. On the other side to this, we have fabricated content, which is content that is specifically fabricated. It's new content, 100% false, specifically fabricated to push a certain idea or perspective or a certain narrative. So you have to think of the types of disinformation kind of on a spectrum, going from the less dangerous, which can be satire or parody, to the most dangerous, which is fabricated content. So in between, we can have many different types of false information. It could be, for example, false connection, when you have something that might be true, but it's put into a different context. Like, for example, we see very often that people will quote articles or will quote, authorities or people say to support their idea or their side, but actually misquoting them and saying something that they haven't said, that they didn't mean. So this is a kind of mis or disinformation, depending on the intent. So I don't want to go too much into detail of each type. I don't think it's important here. What is important for me is to give an idea that intent is what defines mis and disinformation. And then you have types of strategies to push. Okay, this is important when you are online, on social media, or either as a user, so as a in your personal life, if you are online, but also if you are in an organization, or if you are, if you have a startup, if you are a part of an organization, if you are part of a grassroots organization or a political organization, all of these things are really, really important, because how you understand information is also how you can create information and put information out, and also defend yourself because there are going to be people and organizations that will try to deceive you into believing things that are not true. And so I think it's very, very important for us to understand and defend ourselves and create a better system. I want to spend a minute here just to say, this is really, really important into a digital environment, and especially when we talk about data, because we want our data sets to be true, right? And there are a lot of people that will try to insert false information into data sets, into studies, into even just conversations among colleagues and family members and all that. So I think it is really, really important in a digital environment that we understand what the weaknesses are, what the threats are, and how we can start to respond. So the first way we respond is by understanding. Now, I'm not going to go into the misinformation matrix so much. I just want to show it to you to say that, as you see, we can have many different actors that want to push misinformation or disinformation. Here on the left, or I don't know if you see it on the right, but anyway, on the left, you have the reasons. And here in the matrix, you have the most common strategies that are used from each, for each reason to push. So for example, for political influence, you will have misleading content or false context and fabricated content. This is not done matrix. It can always be mixed and matched. For political influence, you might want to use satire or parody. But it's important that you start thinking, okay, so there are actors, there are behaviors, and there is content. This is called the ABC framework. And it's a good way, I think, to think about mis and disinformation. So for each piece of mis and disinformation that you see, for every false post that you see, you should ask yourself, what are the actors that are pushing this? And so the actors can be the people who have an intention and have an interest of pushing a certain type of information. What is the behavior? So what type of strategy are they using? And then finally, what is the content? So is a content that is false, is true, it's part of a narrative, or are they creating a new narrative? All of those questions, but we'll go a little bit more in detail on this. One other thing that I wanted to talk about is what are the reasons to create misinformation. So sometimes you'll see something that is false, and you would think, okay, why would people say things that are not true if they're not true? There are many reasons, right? So the three main reasons are either you can share misinformation for political goal. This is probably the most known. You can share misinformation for profit reasons. So, for example, you can say, the tobacco industry would be the most obvious example. For many, many years, they pushed that tobacco, that smoking was not dangerous for you and it was not detrimental for your health, when in reality it was. This was false information, profit-driven. And then there's also another set of people who just like to play, just like to troll. And so it can just be for fun. And these are not separated buckets necessarily. People who are trolling, who are playing, can also be employed by political organizations to share false information, or from companies to share false information. So they're not separated, but they're different intentions. And I think it's important to remember these different intentions because the responses will be also slightly different. So one thing that I want to say, because I just gave the example of the tobacco industry, so it's a good segue to say mis and disinformation are not they're not born with the social media or the digital environment, right? So they've always been there. The difference is a little bit on the scale. That right now the scale is much, much larger. It's a little bit on the tools. There are new tools that they can use that weren't there before. And also it's a little bit also on the scale kind of the avenues where mis and disinformation is shared, because the platforms and the algorithms are used to support mis and disinformation. And this means that for as much as we can do on our own, we need also systemic change in how the platform work, and how the government regulate speech online, because it's really a systemic issue. And I hope this is clear from what I'm saying. So now we know what mis and disinformation is. We know who pushes it, for what reasons, a little bit of the techniques used. We'll go a little bit more in detail on like the types of techniques, but like in general. So it can be satire, etc. What we said. Now we ask ourselves, why does it work? Why is it that false video claiming that the vaccine against coronavirus is, it's bad for your health, it's trying to kill you, all of this is completely false, obviously. Why does it work so much? I don't know if you're familiar. The example that I was making is from the video Plandemic. It's a documentary, false documentary, but that it's like very, very well crafted, well done, that it looks like a legitimate documentary pushing disinformation and misinformation, disinformation in this case, on coronavirus and a possible coronavirus vaccine. The video became viral immediately and had like millions of visualizations. So you can think of the many documentaries that are there with real information. Why does the false documentary instead become viral? So there are a few reasons for this. One reason is that the false content is created to elicit strong emotions. And strong emotions such as panic and fear kind of bypass our rational, our rational side. And so we feel more compelled to immediately share it. So emotion is a big, big part of it. If we see, if you ever seen National Geographic documentary, they're not like so emotionally charged. But if you see a video claiming that, the deep state is trying to kill you, it will elicit a much, much stronger reaction. And so you are compelled not to think so much and just sharing it. So if you are feeling like you are panic sharing stories, if you feel like a really, really strong reaction, this usually is a big red flag that something is wrong. Another reason is that to possess new information is socially attractive. Think about when you have a piece of gossip and you immediately want to share it with your community, or you know that like it's valuable information and people will be interested to know about that. So that, for example, that is a good example of why. Obviously, something that is false, it's by definition, it's going to be new because it's made up. And so this is socially attractive. Not only it's socially attractive, but it's also we also remember it better because new information, it's easier to retain than information that builds up on information that you already possess. Another reason is that, so for example, you want to be the person in the know, right? The expert, the person in the know, the one who knows before everybody else. So this is the reason why you, A, remember it better, and B, have people listening to you and share it. Another reason is that the more we are interested in a topic, the more we are living into an information bubble that is going to push information related to that topic. So, for example, if we're really interested in politics, we're going to see political misinformation or disinformation. Now, because we're going to also see disinformation related to one political side, especially because the algorithm learns what we like the most and what we are more likely to engage with, it's probably disinformation that we want to believe because it's connected to a narrative that it's advantageous for our side. And so this is another reason. Because to change ideas, it's painful. We tend to go towards a confirmation bias. So to use the information that we receive from the outside to support the thesis and the ideas that we already have. So now that we know why it works so well, what are some propaganda techniques that you are likely to be subjected to? Some of these, I won't go, we want to have like a very base conversation here. Like I want to put some really base ideas that you can then build on. But so we were not gonna go into the details of how every information campaign works, but I want to give a little bit of an oversight, again, an overview on what kind of techniques are there. So one thing that you might have heard is sock puppeting and astroturfing. So to use sock puppets is basically to use false accounts to make it seem as if a certain topic or a certain piece of information is more successful or more discussed than it really is. And astroturfing is basically this, like bringing all of the sock puppet is the false user, and then to have many sock puppets or many trolls or bots go towards a certain piece of information is astroturfing. So, for example, there are this is used by many governments or organizations if they want to distract from a certain topic. They can use this kind of armies of trolls and bots to push, for example, a different topic on a different area, so people will get distracted and think about something else. Another way to push misinformation and disinformation is to create fake websites or imposter websites and use those as sources of information. That is very successful. So always think, is this a reputable source? Sometimes they will create websites that are very similar in the name, but actually not what they, they are not the sounding like famous newspaper, but like with maybe one word or one letter changed. Another way is to cultivate ignorant agents. This is something that you should be particularly aware of. As we said before, if you follow a certain political group, political area, or even it doesn't need to be political, it could be for any other reason, any other group that you're interested in. Sometimes if there are information operations, people will try to cultivate a certain narrative over the course of a long period of time, and make people really believe into this narrative so that they can be used to push misinformation without knowing it. So like, for example, and this is one of the techniques that at a structural level can be used and that are more effective. to push pre-bunking or to push real information before the false information is pushed. I'll make an example so it's going to be more clear. We can see sometimes weeks before or sometimes even months before what it's going to be and what is going to be pushed. For example, we know that there are already narratives pushed against the coronavirus vaccine, so that in the moment when the coronavirus vaccine will be ready to distribute, there will be a lot of people who are already primed to think, oh, this is not going to work, because the information has been pushed for weeks and months before that the vaccine, it's not good. In these cases, you can prepare and start inoculating right information and positive information so that people are not misled when the campaign actually starts. Another thing that it's important to know is that sometimes the information is shared not so that you believe in a specific piece of misinformation or disinformation. So it's not that they want you to believe into an information. They want you to not believe in anything. And so one way to do this is to use the 5Ds propaganda technique, which is dismiss, distort, distract, dismay, and divide. I'm not going to go into detail, but it's just to destroy the reputation of people and organizations that are pushing real information, and instead distract you and push information that is false. This is the classic thing, like all politicians are corrupt, all organizations are terrible, all people in a certain job are bad, right? So when you start saying this kind of things, you are taking away from people the possibility to have real information and to know, what information is available, that it could be real. And this is once you don't know what to believe, then it's very, very easy to push narratives that are advantageous for you. So be careful of that, because it's very, very powerful. Lastly, what I want to say, it's very, very important. The propaganda machine, let's say, the people who are pushing disinformation will try to use code words. It's basically slogans. So when you start repeating a certain word in a certain context, especially if the word has not a positive or negative connotation, but a neutral connotation, and you start using that word into, for example, a negative context always, after a while that you keep repeating the same slogan and the same idea, people will immediately associate that word or that slogan with the negative idea. And so it's very, very important when you try to debunk misinformation or disinformation that you don't use the same words and the same language that it's used to push that idea. Many people, you will have seen for sure online, sometimes you see something that it seems false, it seems like it's not real, and you want to show your environment, your friends, your organization, okay, this is not real. And so you maybe retweet it or repost it saying this is not real. This is not effective for different reasons. On one side, it's not effective because you're giving more engagement to that piece of information. And so the algorithm will lift it up even more, because what the platforms, the digital platforms, the social media platforms like Facebook, like Twitter, etc., are trying to do is to make people stay on the platform as long as possible. And so they will give priority to the content that has the most engagement. And so if you engage with it, even to say it's bad, it will be pushed up even more. This is a general idea because we actually don't know exactly how the algorithms work, which is a big problem for the research. But for sure, this we know. Also because if you're repushing the same language, and so, for example, if there's, there are narratives against illegal immigration, and then every time you talk about immigration, you talk about illegal immigration, then if you push that kind of language, every time you're going to say immigration, you're immediately going to think illegal. So then what to do? As we said, the problem is repeating the message helps to consolidate it. But there is a very easy way to counter this. And think about this, especially if it's like your organization, right? Like imagine that you have a startup and there is a competitor that wants to push bad information on you. What do you do to say this is not true? If you just share the information, say this is not true, this is not going to work because you are repeating the same narrative. One thing that you need to do is to understand the framing and be the first to create the framing. So reframe the conversation immediately. If someone is saying you are a liar, don't respond to I'm not a liar. Try to reframe the conversation as in a different way, right? Just, for example, show yourself as talking about things that are true. And then you don't need to address that. And this is a way just to reframe the conversation. Another way is always repeat what is true more than what is false, and always change the actual words, change the language. So this technique is called the truth sandwich. I know that it's actually incorrect because it should be the lie sandwich because the lie is in the middle. But the truth sandwich is you start with the truth. The first people will remember the first thing they hear. So start with the truth, then you put the lie in the middle, but rephrase it. Don't use the same words. And then you return to the truth and repeat the truth more than the lies. So like if you have a piece of information, it should be 2 to 1. Twice the time the truth and one time the false content, rephrased. Another way to fight it, and what you should think every time you're trying to fight disinformation, is sheep. Remember sheep. You want to think about source, history, evidence, emotions, and pictures. What does that mean? So every time you see a piece of information that you're not really clear, is this misinformation, disinformation? I don't know. First, think of the source. Where does it come from? Is this a reputable source? Is this a fake website? Is this someone who has pushed this information before? So that's the first thing. Then think of the history. Is this part of a narrative? Maybe there is a group that has always been pushed as, unreliable or bad. So is this fitting into that narrative? That also is a red flag. Think about the evidence and see, okay, so do they really have evidence to say what they're saying? And this, you can look for alternative sources and see if those are supporting that narrative. For example, if it's a big news, the bigger newspapers will have it. So before you trust a smaller publication that says something, think, okay, so why are other sources also talking about this? And then, as we said before, think about the emotion. If it's something that makes you feel very, very sad or angry or even happy, but like elicit a very strong reaction from you, this is a red flag. So always think about it before you share. If it's like something that it's so crazy that it's so crazy that it doesn't sound like it's true, it's probably not true. One good way to check misinformation is to look at pictures. So if there is a picture, try to look online. For example, if you do a reverse research on Google, you will see where the picture comes from, how it's been used on the internet, if it has used before. This is a very common technique. For example, let's say on political protests, there is a political protest that is peaceful, but someone has the intention to say that is actually dangerous, that the people are going crazy. They can take a picture that is from a different context, or maybe even the same context, but from 2 years ago, and use it to support this piece of disinformation. So if you do reverse search on the pictures, this is a very, very good way to see, to check whether it actually part of it or not. So there are different ways to identify misinformation online. I'll leave you with some tools. I don't know if I can share the slides, but just to give you a little bit of an idea, always be skeptical of viral videos. We saw why and why they are so effective. Always be skeptical of the provenance. If it doesn't come from a reputable source, someone that you already trust and believe for other reasons, always try to look for the digital footprint. So try to see what the person that is pushing the information has been doing online before. If there is information, verify photos and videos, as we said, and then use geolocation. Very often it's going to be easy to find where a picture has been taken, if someone has been tagged somewhere. This is a good way to see, for example, what I said before, where a picture from one geographical context is being used into a different country. So I don't want to go too deep into misinformation research. I have some tools here that are going to be helpful if you want. If you see, for example, a post on Twitter, you want to see the network diffusion, there is a tool that is called Hoaxy, Hoaxy. That is very, very helpful. It'll also show you if the users pushing this information are bots or they are actual people. So this is a tool, and you'll find many other tools here. There is also a couple of games that you can use to test how much you are good at spotting misinformation and disinformation. And now I wanted to leave a little bit of time in case there were questions. So I'll ask to see if there are questions I'm seeing, and if there are not, I will talk about the tools. So let's see. Okay, it doesn't seem. So I want to show what I was talking about, the Hoaxy tool. So, for example, if you look at the vaccine, Let's see if I can share this. Okay. So for example, if you look at vaccine on Twitter, you will see immediately how big the network is. And then you see also immediately that there are some users that are influencers. And this is helpful also if you have an organization, for example, and you want to push a certain campaign, right? Say, for example, you have an event that you want to push. You can see this works really, really well, for example, if you have hashtags. And so in this case, I put vaccine as a as an example to find something. But you can also put an hashtag if you have, and then you'll see immediately what's the diffusion. And in this case, we see, for example, that if we zoom in, this person here is an influencer, because look how many people, how many users follow them, right? Like, so this person is the first person in this network, in this group, to talk about a vaccine. And look how many people. And this seems legitimate, right? It's green. So it means this is probably a person. But look here. In this case, this account is also an influencer, but it's probably a bot. And so, for example, you can see that this group of, some are user, some are people, see, some are green, some are blue. So this seems like they're human. And some are orange, maybe a bot trying to push. It's not perfect, right? Sometimes they will tell you is a bot, is a person. It's not always really, really accurate. But this is a good example, because you see here, this is probably a disinformation campaign where a bot is pushing false information. And all of these people that are human are getting this information, and some of them are spreading it. See, some of them are telling other people and doing, so this account is doing disinformation, and then these other accounts are doing misinformation. And in this case, this account is maybe saying something positive, something true, and is also spreading it. So this is just, one of the many tools that you can use to see, oh, how have you done, right, how it's folksy. Let me share the link. So this is just, one of the many, many tools that you can have to try and understand how things are working. Are you doing well? For example, again, if you have an organization and if you have like an hashtag, you can say, okay, who are the influencers in my environment, in my network, that can help me push a certain, for example, the Africa Digital Skill Conference. I want to see, okay, how many people tweet about that? How many people are really pushing this? Who are the influencers in my network that can help me support a certain project or a certain thing, right? Because one thing that it's important is, in terms of communication campaigns and information campaigns, you can have as many bots as you want and as many trolls as you want. Very often we think, oh, you can put as many bots, you can put as many things, but really the real people and the influencer will always be more effective. Even look here, right? Like the circle around the green account, it's much bigger, even though it's comparable, but still is much bigger than the bot. This is because the influencers will always be the most important hubs of information. So even if you have a disinformation campaign, until a person picks it up, and this happens very often with politicians, for example. So sometimes we have fringe campaigns that come from, fringe groups. But until the mainstream media, the mainstream politician picks it up, it doesn't really run that much. It remains into that fringe side, right? So this is another reason why the truth sandwich is important, because even if you want to, sometimes you will want to talk about false information, but you don't want to accidentally pick it up and push it. And this is what the media has been doing a lot. A lot of these campaigns would have not been as successful if the media didn't pick it up. So like, and this is why I want to just go back to what I was saying at the beginning. You have to think about this in terms of an ecosystem. It does not matter what false information you're pushing, if there isn't someone, a legitimate user in the mainstream, either is a news organization, is an organization that everybody follows, is a politician, it will not be successful. So this is why you have to be very protective of your community and try to make sure that they have right information that they need. And then with this, I will just go back to the tools so that you can see it again. Let me just share this. So if you want to know more about disinformation and misinformation, First Draft is a great organization that has a lot of tools. In these 2 pages, I'll put the link. I'll put the link in the chat. Yes, someone is saying most often the media want to be the first to break the news. Exactly. This is what is really dangerous, right? Because they want to be the first ones to talk about something. And as we said before, misinformation, disinformation is very attractive because it's new information, right? And so it's very attractive also for the media organizations. Okay, I have last 50 seconds to wrap up. It has been really interesting. Please, if you have any, if you have any questions, I'll put my email here. Costanza.org. Okay, we have 4 minutes extra. Okay, that's great. So I will just put here my Twitter and my email if you want to stay in contact. Okay. So we have another 5 minutes. I don't know if there's anything in particular that we want to discuss. Otherwise, maybe I can go back to another tool. Oh, great. So let's see. Is there any particular questions from this session? So one thing about Oxy that on the media, they don't have the luxury or time to verify. Yes, but they really need to. So the very, very least that they can do is to at least say that they have not verified. And then, they can use the truth sandwich and they can say, okay, this is what we know. Even the truth sandwich doesn't mean that what is in the middle needs to be a lie necessarily. They can also say, this is what we know. This is what this person is saying. Let's say it's a politician. It can say, this is what this person is saying. So the news is that okay. So the news is that this person is saying this, and then we don't know if it's true or false, and then repeat what you know, right? So sometimes, even for the news organization, you can push them. You can push the information, but just try to always put it into a context in which you repeat what you know. And then sometimes also you just have to wait. Even the media have to change the way they operate. Because as of right now, when there is in misinformation, disinformation campaign that is really, really successful, is because the media has picked it up. Otherwise, they can't. So of the things that I share here in the chat, the Start Me, the basic toolkit, look at it a little bit. It's very, very helpful. There are many different things. One tool that I find very helpful that I can share here. Let me go here. Is CrowdTangle. So CrowdTangle, it's from Facebook. And it's a tool that you can put into your browser. For example, if you have Chrome, and it tells you where a certain piece of an article or a post has been shared. And it's super, super helpful because, for example, if you see a piece of information that you're not really sure whether it's true or not, you can use CrowdTangle as an extension for your browser. So you download it, and then if you go on a page, let's say, for example, you see a tweet and it links to an article, and the article sounds like a reputable source, but you're not really sure. You can use CrowdTangle, and it will tell you exactly how many times it has been shared on Twitter, how many times it has been shared on Reddit, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you see that it has been shared in, shady groups, then you know immediately that's probably not correct information, right? So this, and also you'll see if maybe it's something that was already shared like 5 months ago, 2 years ago, something that has been already debunked. Anyway, I think this is really the time to wrap up. So thank you so much for this. I hope that I have left you with a little bit of tools and ideas on how to manage mis and disinformation. And it has been for me really a great pleasure. Please write to me if you have other questions, and have a fantastic day.